Hello traders, Nick Shaheen here looking at Nano Dimension. So I don't track this company for myself, but I do help people in the chat room. And today the question came up and I thought I'm going to do a video on it. All right, so let's see here. This is a 1 hour chart. So looking at it from here, we can't tell much except that the near term of late, the bears are in charge. It's a descending channel of sorts. They're selling the pops with lower highs and lower lows. So is this the bottom? We can't answer this until we zoom out a little bit. So I've just happened to be in a 1 hour chart. All right, so now we have a little bit more information. This is about a year's worth of data on a daily candle. Up here you can see that 1D. So every candle represents just 1 day. Now we have a ton of information. First of all, the short-term slide, we can see it here that we were looking at, has a near-term bounce, which is yesterday. So any drop below that opens the floor for more selling and repeating the process of selling the rips and basically establishing, selling every little pop. The machines will do that until they find a change in behavior. So this is a ginger floor, so to speak. However, it does have a solid floor just below it, which is right here. This is, what is there, 5.4, just rounding a little bit. And this has some weight to it for several reasons. But first, let's look at where we are right now. Today, it's up 5%. So nice bounce. And that blue line is where it is today. Look left. This is a level that has played a role in the past. Right here, exactly, and right here. So, and if we go further, it's that whole cluster, and this failure, and finally they broke through it, came back and tested it for footing with all of these, and then rallied. Came back and tested it for footing and rallied. They failed to match the rally. They came back to it and they bounced. They failed to match this one. Then they broke through it, kind of, temporarily. When was that? Okay, in the middle of May, I think we had a whole market correction. So this, maybe we can ignore this, but not quite. Let's not. But they're still, they fought over it, and they bounced. They matched the prior high. So now we have a lot of values to look at. First of all, anything near 9 is a place to exit longs if I'm already long, and or watch out for the breakout and chase it, or both. So if I book my longs up here, I would re-engage long above here. So I'll put the alert here because I want to look at it. Because if they breach this one, they will overshoot towards 12-ish with some resistance along the way, say around 10.2, and repeat the process. 12 becomes the old 9, where I would exit and see if I can ride it higher. This has nothing to do with the fundamentals. If somebody knows it inside and out and they think they want to sit in it for a long time, just ignore this. Why are you watching this? You know what you know. I'm speaking from a technical perspective to see if it can lend help. And so what happens to the little cluster I said we can ignore? Well, we can ignore, but if we lose it, you should say, uh-oh. Why? Because you don't know what's below it. Whatever is below it hasn't happened in a long time. So why revert to last year? That'd be the question. Plus, technically, I guess it could be some sort of an inverse cup and handle, but the results of which would be negative. So let's ignore that for a while and just say that there's a lot of uncertainty if they lose this bounce level. So first job for the bulls, people, hold this line, 6-ish, 5.9. Second, if that fails for whatever reason, remember that sometimes stocks fall through no fault of their own. If the markets have a correction, that's not going to hold all by itself, regardless of how strong of floor it has. In this case, that floor right there, not very strong. This is much stronger. And now the problem is the one that used to be a big floor, that's where they're at, coming into it with a 5% rally. So I think there's a lot of resistance here. There's a lot of resistance at 7. There's a lot of resistance at 7.4 or 0.5, 0.6. But every resistance line, like I did this one, is the next trigger. So if they can push through it, then it becomes a launch into the next resistance line. But first things first, hold the floor. Let me see if I have any lines on it and see if I want to update them live. Okay, so I haven't updated in a while. This remains a pivot. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is this cluster right here, which is the volume profile. So the zone between here and here is the busiest as far as volume profile. So this is where both bulls and bears love it the most, basically, you can say that. where it has been most active. So it's sticky. And the problem is if they've gotten below it and they're on the edge of it, they're trying to get back into it. It's harder to get back into a busy zone than it is to leaving it. So it is support, magnet, until you get out of it. And once you get out of it, it's hard to get back into it because it's just overhead resistance. So I did have a line here. You see that line that matched up to this, and they kind of triggered it. I think the trigger is still ongoing. I think this is the breakdown that started here. So I'm going to just simply extend it. Actually, that will be misleading. I want to remember that I had done it before, but I want to mark it somehow. So I'm going to just put an arrow to it and point to it. And I think I'll remember that this way. So now I'm still marking the line, but I want to keep it to remember when I drew this. And this has been a pivot. So now I'm going to change it from just a pivot because I mentioned it as a what, folks? Zone. Where is it? There we go. So it's a zone. It's a little bit wider than this actually. And this is definitely resistance zone, still stands. So nothing has changed there. It's also the trigger. So in case somebody gets upset, I'll put it like this, breakout opportunity. So I'll bring it down to 12 so it's not so prominent. So it is resistance, but with a breakout opportunity. All right, so tight range, trying to fight for its life. If the market's correct, this could fall down here. I haven't looked at the fundamentals. Maybe I can take a peek if they're there. I don't know. It's a micro cap. No, 1.6 billion, so it's not too tiny. All right, so I don't have many fundamentals to choose from here. Let me see here statistically. Whoa, what? Price to sales, they must be like pre-production or something. So that, if that's correct, that's too huge. Let me see. Any income? Revenue. Yes, they do have revenues. Yeah, from a valuation perspective, if you can put a value to somebody that's trying to establish a business, it is super expensive. Even, the price to sales usually is like, I'll give you an idea. Amazon is 4. Apple is like 8-ish, 9. Tesla 2025. This one is like 330. Zoom, let me see here. Zoom used to be 110, and I thought it was extremely expensive, but it grew into it. So now Zoom has dropped considerably towards it's reasonable. So it's not a deal breaker, but those are my 2 cents on the, do your homework from the fundamental basis. I don't have time, but this day, the comments I just made here, I'm confident with. Okay, one last thing. All right, so have we mentioned this part? Yeah, I did. Okay, never mind. I did. Nick signing out. Oh, I'm not going to put a link to join the group. I'm at capacity. You can try to find me on Benzinga. Actually, I put that link. So until I free up some space, I'm not going to put my personal link to join my chat room there.